if you're a licensed tradesperson, you are so much in demand right now in North America. So if you end up losing your job, I believe the next week you would have people willing and able to hire you, if not even the next day. I mean, if you end up losing your job on a Friday and you're able to apply on Indeed or some of these job boards over the weekend, I bet you would have folks calling you on Monday for an interview, or even, hey, can you start, tomorrow? I mean, that's how in demand the trades are, specifically if you're certified. Wherever you are in your journey or thinking of pursuing a second career, or maybe you're happy in your career and you have nieces or nephews or children who are in high school or elementary school, I would say just don't downplay the trades. There's a lot of stigmas around the trades, that they're lesser than other careers. But I mean, I'm a testament that you can have a successful, fulfilling career within the trades and you build a life that you're proud of.
Hey everyone, today we are delighted to have Steve to introduce us to his work about trade persons, daily routines, about investing, his journey to become a value investor, and his new book. Steve, could you introduce yourself a little bit, your experience, and what you do?
Hey Thomas, happy to be here. I'm a Red Seal millwright. I've been working in the trades, if you include my apprenticeship, for about 10 years, and ended up just recently publishing this book of mine, A Job Worth Doing, a practical guide to starting strong in the skilled trades, which is essentially a guidebook for high school students for having a successful career in the trades and being able to start their apprenticeship, help with being able to get their first job, government, provincial and federal grants available, and some of the initiatives and just how to get started and some of the nuances of the skilled trades. As far as on the investing front, being a value investor, I've been doing that for about 3 years now. I've been investing for about 9 years, but a lot of that, there was a lot of mistakes along the way and things that I learned. Now I have a pretty firm investing thesis and goals associated with investing, and kind of have a rigid plan that I don't deviate from, which ever since I've been able to have that, it's been quite a bit better than when I was just doing it based off of hype around the markets and whatnot when I first got started.
Maybe we can discuss your roles as a trade person, your role as an author, and your role as an investor. Maybe we can start with the trade person side of you. So could you tell me a little bit about your weekly routines and your job and the people you are dealing with?
Right. So I'm an industrial millwright, are often called an industrial mechanic. So essentially we maintain and refurbish and overhaul industrial equipment. So this daily routine would be quite similar, I think, to a lot of the industrial trades, but it would differ quite a bit from the construction trades, things like working in residential houses, framers, carpenters, etc. But my daily routine would essentially start with showing up to the plant, going to our morning safety meeting, and we discuss safety moments and what's going on around the plant and around the site, and anything we should be aware of that's happened over, say the weekend or overnight, or changing conditions. Then my supervisor will lay out the plan for the day and the week and dish out a variety of different jobs to the teams that he manages. So for instance, he might say, hey, Steve, you're teamed up with so-and-so today, and you're going to be working on said pump. And then after that meeting's done, and our team is usually, teams typically range, depending on the plant and whatnot. The group I'm in is about 14 people. So after that meeting's done, we'll go back to our desk and we'll be able to look at the job, see what it entails, get the job ready by seeing if, parts are in stock for that job or what it would entail for work protection. So isolation of the equipment, essentially. So we're able to safely work on it. And then we're able to look at the safety aspects of the job, see what hazards are associated with it, create our pre-job brief and job safety analysis is what it's called, which we have to fill out for each and every job. And then it's, establishing that work protection. So typically that entails, closing valves, isolating the electrical, and locking and tagging that equipment so that no one can just, walk by and turn it on. There's a physical lock there. And tag, identifying whose lock it is, if they got to contact you, and then going and repairing or replacing that equipment.
Yeah. So you work for an energy provider, right?
Yeah, so I work for a nuclear energy provider here in Ontario.
Yeah, maybe we can talk about your own path and journey. So could you walk me through your path from education to how you find this specialty of trade?
Sure, yeah. It's kind of a funny start. It seems like every guy in the trades has, a really unique perspective of how or story of how they got into the trades. But for me, anyways, it was just looking for a job when I was younger. I was in high school at the time, and I was working at a department store, and I knew I wanted to get into the trades, but I didn't know what trade to get into. And I figured an easy way to start would be to just drop off my resumes at different factories around town. And that's what I did. And I ended up getting an interview on the spot at one of the factories. He interviewed me and walked me through the plant. He gave me, PPE. So he gave me a pair of steel toe boots and safety glasses, and he toured me through the plant. And he ended up hiring me as well right on the spot. So essentially I indicated to him exactly what I'm telling you now, that I wanted to get into the trades, but I didn't know where to start or what trade I wanted to be part of. So I ended up starting there as general labor, but ultimately he would rotate me through with different teams within the site. So I would work with the electricians one week, I would work with the machinists one week, and I would work with the welders as well as the millwrights one week. And I really enjoyed working with the millwrights, so I ended up staying with the millwrights and just working with them. It being a smaller factory, they weren't able to put me through apprenticeship there, and I was relatively close to a local college, so I ended up taking the millwright program there, which covered the in-school portion of my apprenticeship. And from there I was able to start after the program. I think this is fairly unique to the trades, but just because it's so in demand, over the summer, it was a 2-year program, but over the summer I was able to work as a millwright apprentice, and then the week after I graduated college, I was in an apprenticeship role in the millwright trade, and I was able to complete my apprenticeship and write my Red Seal certification test, and was able to continue my journey as now a Red Seal millwright, which is essentially your full certification, and travel around to different work sites and jobs within the province and learn the different nuances of the trades and work with multiple other types of trades and stakeholders, and then be able to get into supervision roles and managing maintenance teams.
Yeah, for example, for the current status, if a young folk would like to do what you do, millwright, what education does she or he needs to go through, and the practice they need to accumulate?
Yeah, it's quite unique, actually. There's multiple different routes you can take, and one isn't better than the other. The most traditional route is just getting an apprenticeship role as a millwright. So you didn't apply directly having a high school education or being in high school to apprenticeship roles, and they potentially, depending on the company, would be able to send you to apprenticeship training. But typically it's 1 week every 3 months of in school. Oftentimes, the employer will pay you for this week of school, and then you do that for 4 years. And then after that, once you've accumulated your working hours, which is 8,000 hours of working experience, you're able to write your certificate of qualification or your Red Seal test. Now, that's the more traditional way of being certified in the trades. And different trades have different allocations to schooling that you need. Some are 3 years of schooling, others are 4, like the millwright apprenticeship, and some are 6,000 to 10,000 hours of working experience. The other way you can do it is you can go directly into a pre-apprenticeship program at your local college, or take a specific trade program at a college, like what I did, taking the millwright program, and oftentimes that covers the in-school portion of your apprenticeship. So then after that, all you have to do is accumulate those working hours.
I see. So if I want to be a millwright professional, for example, for me, one way to do it is I can go to a college with a millwright certification program, right? I can go through the program, then I will find a factory or industrial factory that is willing to hire me as an apprentice. Then I accumulate the hours, that I take the exam, boom, I'm certified. That's the route, right?
Yeah.
Typically, I can go to the factory first, be their apprentice, like a trainee, and then they may reimburse some of my costs, like trade school. So it's another route.
So the trade school, if you're signed up for an apprenticeship within the factory, the schooling is paid for. Now, certain companies do pay you to go to school as well. Your schooling's paid for if you go that route. Now, some of the bigger companies also pay you for your week of schooling every 3 months. And that's kind of the typical apprenticeship route and how to get certified. Now, one thing to keep in mind, while you're going through that apprenticeship process, is you're making a great wage. Like a lot of these guys, within their apprenticeship, they're able to buy their first home and be able to start families.
So you mean that the pay, even for apprentice, already good enough? You're not bad.
Yeah, definitely. Like, I think, I go through different pay scales within the book of typical wage structures for apprentices. And a first year compared to a fourth year apprentice. But a lot of times, almost all the time, the wage is quite competitive and very much livable.
So even though a trade person has not been got his or her license as a certified millwright professional, they are still earning some okay chunk of money.
Yeah, I've met first year apprentices before who've made $100,000 in their first year of their apprenticeship. Now for me, I believe I made $100K for the first time in my third year as an apprentice.
Yeah, amazing. Yeah. So how about the competitive landscape, the labor market for millwrights at least? Is the supply far exceeds the demand?
Yeah, the demand is far outpacing the supply. I mean, there is a huge shortage of tradespeople in Canada, and it's such a great time to join. And that's part of the reason why I wrote this book is, to encourage folks to look at the trades as a viable option to be able to have a successful and fulfilling life. But that's one of the greatest parts about the trades right now is no matter where you are in your life or journey, there's trade options for you. I mean, it's so much in demand. You can essentially choose which trade suits you. And if you're motivated enough to apply, you would be able to get an apprenticeship quite easily in the trades just because it's so in demand. And that's really what's driven the wage structures of the trades to go up so much.
So yeah, money aside. So if I want to assess if I'm the right person to be in the trade, what question should I ask myself?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. And there's so many different trades. I think there's a trade for everybody and every personality type and every skill set that you have. So as far as what skills that you would have to have or what things that you would need to get into the trades, I think it would be just a willingness to look at the trades and a willingness to apply. And when you're going through, I mean, the trades are so vast. So, I mean, you could look at something like an industrial mechanic, millwright, like what I do, and you might think, okay, how are my problem solving skills? Is this something that, piques my interest? Watch some YouTube videos about it. Or maybe electrical or shift control is something that interests you. So doing different wiring and looking at maybe you enjoyed math in high school, or maybe something like communications is something that interests you, and it might be better for you to get into a trade in the construction industry. So one where you're interacting and going house to house, maybe plumbing, maybe electrical on the residential side, or an automotive mechanic. And just there's so many trades that many people don't even know about. For instance, like, steam fitters or boiler makers or welders.
And how about the physical side? Does one has to be physically fit, qualified as a millwright professional?
Yeah, I would say for the millwright trade, typically you would have to be able to get into, tighter spaces. A lot of times that will, depending on the place you work, enter confined spaces. And, oftentimes we have to carry heavy tools. I think you would have to be able to lift at least 50 pounds to be able to be in the millwright trade. But there's a lot of trades that don't require that as well. For instance, a chef is a red seal trade, as well as, hairdresser, as well as, crane operator, or even a shift control technician. A lot of them are typically just dealing with small wires and control panels and troubleshooting in that way. So that trade doesn't require a lot of lifting or physical capabilities, as well as this isn't a trade per se, but very related is different assessing roles where you're assessing or planning jobs for trade folks. And oftentimes too, within the trades, if somebody in their personal lives or in life, they have an injury or get older, aren't able to meet the physical demands of their role, a lot of times they get into the assessing or planning side of the trades.
Planning side, like an office job?
No, it would be an office job typically. Now, a lot of times it would entail doing a walk down of the job. So say knowing equipment is going to need maintenance or overhaul on it in the future. Yeah. For instance, taking a look and driving a car and knowing what needs to be fixed on the car, or going out to a job site and identifying what equipment needs to be mobile crane operated to a different area and the logistics of that, and then going back to their office and then scoping out and writing down that job so that when the tradesperson receives that job, they know what the whole job entails and they have the proper tools necessary for execution.
Yeah, like a coordinator?
Yeah, that would be definitely related, for sure.
Among your friend circles, so which major types of trades are most popular? Which of them are the least popular?
Yeah, so I mean, I think because I'm in the millwright trade, and one of the beauty things about the trades is you meet a lot of your friends while working. So I would say predominantly a lot of my friends are industrial mechanic millwrights. I have friends on the electrical side as well, electrician and shift control friends, as well as operator friends. So power engineering will be the technical name for the operators. So those would be the guys who are operating, say, a nuclear plant or a gas plant. And then as well, I have friends in management and friends in planning as well. I have friends in the carpentry trade, friends in automotive as well.
Yeah. So in your life, finding a job could never be a problem, right? Even though, for example, knock wood, someone lose their job, they will find another quite soon, right? So that's the norm in our world. It still takes some time to find a job.
Yeah, so it depends a little bit on where you are in your job or where you are in your career. Now, if you're an apprentice, it might be a little bit of a longer process, of course, because only certain employers can hire apprentices, especially if you're, say, a first-year apprentice. But I don't think it would be too much longer either, just because it is so much in demand, and oftentimes, these employers know if they can hire, say, a second or third-year apprentice, and they're able to complete their apprenticeship at this company and have some seniority now per se, and know the plant or the equipment, they're most likely to stick around and be able to potentially have a career there. So depending where you are in your journey, but if you're certified, the cliche to say in a way, but like, you're employable wherever you go. So you can almost decide where you want to live in the country and go there and be able to work.
It's fantastic. Yeah, man, I went to the wrong industry. Yeah, it's tough to get a job, get an office job. These days, the labor market is frozen. Yeah, it's a sluggish market for office jobs.
So for instance, to give you an example, when I was an apprentice, I had signed up on Indeed for the, uploading your resume to Indeed and applying to jobs on there. But then also your resume is now public. And I would have employers reaching out to me, even though I didn't apply to a job, just seeing if I'm interested in having an interview, even though I never applied. And that was as an apprentice. And though, I was able to get a full-time job and be able to be happy there, and I actually ended up having to delete my Indeed account. And because it was almost getting annoying, I was being contacted all the time.
It starts tomorrow.
Yeah.
It's Monday, yeah.
It's just like, no, like I'm heavily employed. Like I'm not needing an interview. So it's quite crazy in that way. And I don't know if there's like a public database or something, but still, like, and this is years and years ago, still to this day, like every couple of months, I'll get a phone call or I'll get an email from someone being like, hey, are you still are you still looking for a job? Or do you know anyone who's, in the trades who is looking for a job that you can refer us to?
Wow. Yeah, you're so in demand. I mean, some agencies may keep a record of your resume, something like that, right? And
then, it must be.
Yeah, then maybe you are not available this year, but they will keep in touch.
Yeah, no, I'm not looking for a job anymore. Please stop contacting me. Delete me from your database here.
It's a different world. You mentioned a lot about Red Seal certification. Is that a Canadian thing or is a global thing?
Yeah, so it's a Canadian thing. So it essentially means like it's you're certified to work in that trade within Canada, like within it's like province to province. If you have a Red Seal certification, it's recognized in BC as well as Ontario and any other province. It's just the same. So if I were to go province to province, I would be certified to work on equipment and essentially it comes with a certain level of trust as well. So like, if you're hired by an employer in BC or on a job site in BC, but you're from Ontario, but you have a Red Seal certification, it kind of says like, hey, this guy, has put in his time in this trade and he knows a thing or two, about the trade and, troubleshooting or whatever the nuances are of your trade. Now, not all trades are Red Seal. Some are just, a certificate of qualification, but others are, a Red Seal trade. Now, if it isn't a Red Seal trade that you're in, at the same time, I think you would be certified with that certificate of qualification to really take it wherever you want.
Great. So if I want to go to the trade school or college with a trade related program, I need to choose those with a Red Seal certification.
No, you wouldn't have to do that. For instance, you could go to school for, say, I'm not sure off the top of my head all of the trades that are Red Seal and the ones that aren't, but you could go to school for carpentry or welding or anything like that and be able to gain experience in that and then be able to start your apprenticeship right when you started school to be able to work towards your certificate of qualification.
Yeah, maybe we can pivot a little bit to your book.
Okay, yeah.
What's the aha moment for you that motivates you to write a book?
Yeah, for sure. It's funny because there actually was like a very aha moment of like, hey, I should write this book. And, talking with you here, I hope I explained how in demand the trades are because they really are in demand so much. And me being a licensed tradesperson, I thought, it would be great. I have a lot of experience in the trades and I've worked with a lot of different trades people from a variety of different provinces and whatnot. And the aha moment for me was when I was watching the federal election leadership debate. And one of the questions that they all agreed on, which is, super rare for them, politicians to agree on certain things, was the demand of the trades and supporting the trades within Canada. And I thought, you know what, like, all these politicians here are agreeing that there needs to be some more support around the trades. And I thought, you know what, like I have this goal of being able to write a book. And that was kind of a long-term goal, but I never knew what I would be able to, write it on or what topic to go after. And that was kind of the aha moment, like, hey, I'm a tradesperson. I'm certified. I've been in the trade, a long time now. But then also too, I do a lot of reading. And that was kind of the aha moment. Like I feel like I'm capable of being able to put this together. And I quite enjoyed teaching different apprentices and giving advice to, high school students and folks looking at getting into the trades. And I thought if I can put those thoughts and, experiences on paper, I think it could be a huge help to parents and high school students or folks thinking about a second career in the trades.
Yeah. What are the major topics that were covered in the book?
Yeah, so it briefly goes over a little bit of my experience in the trades just to give some perspective, but it talks mainly about how to succeed as an apprentice. So how to get your first job in the trades, how to start your apprenticeship, kind of the nuances around that, what trade to choose, some of the pay scales within the trades, and nuances of different trades. And then it kind of dives into, universal advice around the trades and kind of how to get your apprenticeship done effectively, how to have, an enjoyable career in the trades, how to succeed as an apprentice. So, kind of job site dynamics of being able to work with people with tons of experience, and you being in a training role and being able to learn from the different types of tradespeople. Because sometimes you're going to have tradespeople who aren't too thrilled about having an apprentice around and might be having a bad day or just kind of grouchy personality, and how to navigate that as an apprentice and starting your career, and how you can actually learn from these folks still and be able to gain their respect. I dive into a little bit of personal finance and how to succeed and navigate that. One of the things that people don't realize about the trades is you're still able to afford a home, you're still able to afford vehicles and be able to afford a life and a family, if that's what you're wanting to do. You're still able to do that and have that in the trade. So I dive into that and a little bit of like personal finance advice, just because that's a passion of mine as well. I dive into some of the federal and provincial incentives of getting into the trades, just because the trades are in such demand. There's initiatives from the governments in getting into the trade. So I dive into that, how to apply for them, etc. And then general job advice for being able to get your first job in the trades. There's a sample resume in there for someone who doesn't have any experience in the trades, what your first day would kind of entail. Like a lot of times I think people skip over the trades because of some of the stigmas within the trades of having to work with, rough and tough people who are rough and stupid, and those stigmas just are not true. So I kind of dive into those stigmas and watch those, and then I'll tell you how it really is of what it's like actually in the trades and breaking into the trades with no experience and with nobody, say in your family or nobody within the trades, how you would go about navigating your first day in the trades, which can sometimes be a bit overwhelming for folks not having anyone in their family within the trades.
Yeah. So in your book, you also mentioned about how to boost one's mental health, right? So are there any pressure, working in the trades, or some pressure from the people you are dealing with? So how do you see that? Yeah,
so that's one of the things I talk about in the book as well, kind of navigating pressures within the trades and, preserving not only your body and safety within the job and keeping yourself safe, but then also keeping, your mind safe and your mental health. at the forefront of your life and being able to enjoy your life, being able to show up to a job and be able to be in the right frame of mind and being able to, like I mentioned before, being able to work with folks that may not appreciate your assistance as an apprentice and being able to navigate those challenges while preserving your mental health. And that's so important. Unfortunately, there is a stigma around that, in the trades, like kind of that, a lot of times kind of that tough guy attitude of, we don't talk about our emotions or, don't worry about that kind of stuff. Like just work your way through and keep going and never think about anything emotional or, we just got to keep going and working that overtime and long hours with no attention to, our mental framework. And that's a recipe for burnout and not really being able to have a fulfilling, enjoyable career. So I dive into that and how to preserve your mental health and working long hours or being out of town or dealing with grumpy personalities, how to navigate that and how to have balance in your life.
Yeah, I heard like a million times something like, suck it up and do it already, or suck it up and keep grinding, just keep grinding and grinding. Yeah, it's a fast track to burnout and all sorts of mental health problems. So one has to take care of themselves. Yeah, so from a variety of ways.
Yeah, and a lot of times that mindset, it doesn't pan out. A lot of times taking a step back and thinking of things and getting in that proper frame of mind is how you be the most productive as well, and how you can do things safely and preserve your mind and body. And then also too, like generally enjoy your life and enjoy the people you're working with. If you're not in the right frame of mind, I mean, people are going to notice and, you're not going to be able to enjoy yourself and enjoy your day-to-day job, whereas if you come at it, refreshed and energized and with a good mental health, a lot of times you're able to look at things from a positive, even if it's to be going your way, you can put it into a positive perspective. And then, a lot of times that's how you get yourself into a better circumstance as well and be the most productive.
Yeah, negative emotions has a ripple effect, right? It can affect people around you. It can affect your friends, your co-workers. So yeah, it's not a great thing to hold back, but sometimes it's to get it out, right?
Yeah.
So what's your experience, all your tricks that to keep things on a positive direction? Yeah, even though sometimes you face some negative thing.
Yeah, for sure. And I dive into all that stuff as well in the book. And I think one of the greatest things for an apprentice to do, and like a lot of like, it's funny, like me being a journeyman now and working with apprentices and whatnot. And I'll tell them, the best thing you can do as an apprentice is just be positive. Because like as an apprentice, we don't expect you to know exactly how to do different jobs and the nuances of the trades and knowing exactly how to say troubleshoot a pump or a certain type of equipment. But one thing as an apprentice you have control over is your attitude. And a lot of times, you're working with journeymen who might have their own struggles or be going through something at home. And if you're able to be an apprentice who shows up to the job site or factory and put on, a positive attitude or even just smile and be happy, not only that, even if you're almost faking it and smiling just for the sake of smiling, it'll not only boost your attitude, but it'll boost the attitudes of the folks around you. And they'll generally enjoy working with you because you always bring that positive attitude. But then also too, it might be a outlet for them to be able to increase their mental health and have a generally more positive work environment. And to get back to your question of how I navigate those challenges of mental health, I think it's good to think about challenges and break down those challenges to know what I have control over and what I don't. If I can change, those circumstances that are causing a negative effect and why I'm feeling the way that I am and breaking that down. But oftentimes I think if I personally am in a bad state of mind, I think it's important for me to take a step back, take a breather, think about these things, and then get myself into a positive mindset, figure out what's the task at hand and how to remedy, say, this problem. Or maybe this personality conflict that, I'm faced with, like whatever the challenge is, whether if it's mechanically related or team related.
Sometimes people liking you or not liking you, it's kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy, right?
Yes.
If you believe someone like you will like them. And maybe you guys create a positive cycle that you can work together, you smile at each other, and maybe they will truly like you. But if you don't believe they like you, you believe they hate you or dislike you, you send negative cues and they end up not liking you. So I think there's a lot about the reality and your attitude towards the reality. They're both in the equations, right?
Definitely. And honestly, too, like I've had it before where, guys just don't like you. There's nothing you can do to make
Yeah.
them like you. But one
Yeah.
thing you can do is have control, like you're saying, over your thoughts towards them and just being overwhelmingly almost like positive around the circumstance. At the end of the day, they just know, hey, like this is how they're going to be. They're going to be positive. And even if they don't like working with you or want to work with you, they know
Yeah.
who you are and know you want to be able to pursue getting the job done. And that comes with a certain level of respect. So even though they may not like you, they'll respect you.
For example, some people, they like you, whatever happens, right? Some people don't like you. And some people are just in the middle, right? They're like swing persons. They may like you, they may not like you, but your attitude toward them swing the equation, swing the directions they're heading towards, liking you or not. Do you believe it?
Yeah, I think no matter what job or what trade you're in, I think, it's something we need to do better at is, being nicer to people and realizing the different nuances of their lives and their circumstances or their beliefs. Like, I think a lot of people we have more in common than we often think. Like a lot of us are just trying to provide for families or provide, for ourselves to be able to enjoy our lives. And we believe that pursuing whatever we're pursuing is going to do that, whether that's like, personal beliefs, and trying to see it from their perspective rather than seeing it from your perspective and with your own beliefs. Just try and give people grace around you to have their own beliefs and try and understand where they're coming from if you have a disagreement.
Sometimes trying to understand why people are saying something could help you alleviate some of the impact on you, right? If they say something negative, maybe it's not about you, maybe it's about themselves, right? Maybe you are just a projection. Yeah, when you think about it, maybe for example, if they say some nasty things, maybe they have a bad day. Maybe they have had an argument with their partners. Yeah, maybe their stocks, dropped like 20% today. So yeah, there's endless possibilities, and sometimes it's not personal.
Yeah, definitely. I think even the fact of thinking about it is doing you both a great service, opposed to just going with your gut reaction, whatever that is, and responding to that person in a negative way. If you just if they project something negative on you and then you just think about it for even a couple of seconds, you're not going to be just your gut reaction, which is often wrong, of responding to them in, a quick and clever way or, insulting them back or something like that. Oftentimes it's better to just think about it a little bit and then get grounded and, be able to respond.
Yeah, to position oneself, right? To deliberate.
Definitely, yeah.
Yeah, I would like to move on to the investor part of you. We met in the heavy value investing classes. What motivated you to become a value investor? Could you walk me through your journey?
Sure, yeah. Well, I would say I'm definitely, I guess the motivation behind it would be making money and trying to provide, for my family and then for retirement and for, being able to have a successful financial life. My journey around investing kind of started actually when I was 18 and I was first able to open a brokerage account. I was quite interested before that, but a lot of that had to do with, hype around the stock market and around certain companies, growth companies, had crazy revenue and crazy debt looking at it now. And just whatever the talking heads on articles online were pumping, that's what I was kind of interested in. And honestly, it worked out for me quite well for a few years without any firm investing strategy. And I was essentially just kind of gambling, looking at it now, reading articles and believing in these companies and these CEOs without truly understanding the nuances of investing or running a business. And then it kind of hit me when I had a company that increased about 900% while I owned it. And then I watched it fall back to my entry price.
Wow.
And one thing that I thought about is that I share is okay, well, if you don't fully understand why you bought the company, when are you going to know when to sell? When is it overpriced if it was overpriced when you bought it? So that's what I kind of think of with that. And although I didn't lose money on that company, I guess I lost money in the time that I owned it, opposed to just being an owner of the overall market opposed to these companies. But that really made me sit down and evaluate, was I just going to own the market and go that route? Or, because I was quite interested still in investing, was I going to actually sit down and learn? So what I ended up doing is I ended up just buying the market, one of the Canadian market following ETFs via fee. And So I decided I would stick with that until I understood the investing process. And that's when I started learning about value investing as I was doing research. And I thought it kind of meant my personality type, being frugal, and looking at kind of being almost a contrarian in the sense of being able to think of, okay, why this company is in the spot that it is now, and why is the market discounting it like crazy, and what catalysts may be to get that company back up into the position that, say, it was in, or in a better position than when it was in, or even just being able to normalize to the actual value of what it is right now and not being discounted. So that appealed to me, that whole kind of thesis and kind of ideology around value investing. So I read a variety of books around it, and then obviously I was able to take that Ivy Business School course on value investing, which really solidified a lot of the ideas and thesis that I had already made up around myself.
What's your favorite investment literature apart from Dr. books?
Yeah, definitely The Intelligent Investor by Benjamin Graham. I really enjoy that book. I think I've read it 3 times now. Specifically chapter 8 and 13 I've read a variety of times. And then one thing I really enjoy doing as well, as far as reading, is reading value investing companies' about sections on their websites and following their 13F filings of what companies they're following. Oftentimes I get some of my best ideas from piggybacking off of these value investing firms and reading more about them and their CEOs and ideologies or theses around these companies. I quite enjoy reading them.
What's the name of the company again?
Just reading different value investing firms' websites and about sections on their websites. I quite enjoy. And then as well, another classic by Benjamin Graham, Security Analysis, which is diving into value investing deeper. And then, I quite enjoyed George Athanascos' book that we both read within that.
Ben Graham's Intelligent Investor is truly good. Blew my mind, actually. Yeah, when I started doing investment like 10 years ago, I was actually a researcher. 10 years ago, I didn't find the book interesting. But after being on the street, the Wall Street or Bay Street, whatever you call it, I read the book again and just mind-blowing. It's so true about how the Wall Street hypes are created. The sell-siders, actually researcher and the investment bankers, sometimes they are creating a bubble, creating some sort of stories that if you poke a hole in these stories, you see the flaws. And sometimes the best way to invest is don't believe in these hypes of things, right?
Yeah, almost like being removed from Wall Street or Bay Street and not being exposed to those crazy hype companies, and just thinking of it from like a business perspective of being like, okay, this company is worth $2 trillion. How much growth is truly sustainable for this massive company? And am I going to be able to compete with market returns by investing in this company, or would I do better by investing in a company that's discounted? Like if the overall market goes down, these value companies are already discounted so much. They're already forgotten about companies. So, they're already priced to fail. They're not going to go down much more. Whereas these companies that are priced to absolute perfection, if there's any sort of hole that gets poked or any sort of negative news, you see like a 20% drop, like NVIDIA when the DeepSeek kind of news was published, I believe last year. I think NVIDIA dropped like 20%. And, it turned out to be not really a factor at all for NVIDIA's growth or anything. It just was, so priced to perfection that any sort of negative publications were going to drive the market.
Yeah, at least this year, I believe if you want superior returns, maybe you should go with the hypes, go with the fraud. I think this year, because there are a lot of fraud in the market, right? The AI fraud, the AI hypes, whatever you call it. But if you want satisfactory returns, maybe you shouldn't go with the fraud.
Yeah, growth stocks have definitely done very good this year, especially the AI stocks and whatnot. I just, you're investing, like I mentioned before, with the company that kind of shook me up and turned me into a value investor. It's like the company's already so overpriced. How are you going to know when to sell? At what point are the returns or the frothy enough for you to be able to sell?
Sometimes it's about your goals, right?
Yeah.
Do you want to double your wealth, or you just want to preserve your wealth in a steady way? I think there's huge difference in the tactic allocation from the two different perspectives.
Definitely.
You mentioned about frugal. How frugal are you? So what motivates you to be frugal?
I guess, yeah, just from like a personal finance perspective, I think like we're so ingrained in our culture, like we're almost like a culture of debt and like pursuing debt and kind of a lot of the finer things as being able to finance everything. I mean, you look at companies like Go Easy in a firm being able to essentially take out debt and buy now, pay later on anything. In regards to frugality and whatnot, I just always thought, to avoid debt at all costs. If you're willing to do that and willing to postpone gratification and be able to invest that money, you're able to afford those finer things, but not at that cost of debt, but being able to, buy with cash opposed to, with that through invested means. So for instance, like with talking about personal finance and whatnot, but if you're in debt in an asset that isn't working for you or depreciating, like for instance, like a car loans and whatnot, I think you should definitely be crushing that debt as soon as possible. Generally, I mean, like buying things that you're able to afford now is a good means of doing that. Now I work in the trades and being able to make competitive wages, throughout my adult career, always be able to save and set aside money for different things.
I agree with you that snowballs, right? And especially high rate debt.
Yeah, big time. I mean, it's like with investing, we're always pursuing, compounded returns, but with debt, it's compounded debt.
Yeah, it's huge repercussions, right? If you let the debt snowballs. So being frugal to invest conservatively, to preserve your wealth and whatever you make. Is that a common mindset for people around you, or you are unique in that circle?
I would say like generally it is quite unique. Like I think kind of as a society, it's quite rare to avoid debt like the plague.
Yeah.
But I mean, like growing up and whatnot, like we didn't really have much money at all, and I had a lot of friends who lived in nice homes and whatnot. And I always wanted that for myself and my family. And my dad was a big influence on being frugal as well, but he was frugal out of necessity rather than frugal for the sense of like saving. He was almost frugal in the sense of like needing to be able to afford life. So I guess I learned that frugality from him.
Your parents' lifestyle have a huge influence on yours.
I guess in the frugality aspect, yes, but in almost every other aspect, no. Just because, like my dad, he wasn't in the trades at all. He worked in office jobs his whole life, and I got into the trades. And that's part of the motivation for me writing the book as well is, what I have enjoyed and what would have helped me when I was in high school, not knowing anyone in the trades or knowing anyone to reach out to about what it was truly like to get into the trades. I would have enjoyed this book and it would have greatly helped me on my journey, especially as like when I dive into being an apprentice, and some of the things that I recommend to apprentices are learned experiences from myself making some of those mistakes.
Yeah, it's a really rewarding and fulfilling thing to do, right? Helping others, even by a bit or by a lot, you don't know, but you are truly helping others to live their passion, right?
Yeah, and I think, I think generally as people, we have an obligation to help out others on similar paths. Like that's what life's all about.
Yeah. Earlier we mentioned values, right? Values of companies, values of investors. So what's your core values as an investor or as a trade person?
Yeah. It's said so often and like, people downplay it, I think, because it's said all the time. But I think just being a nice person, treating others the way you want to be treated. Also, too, in like today's environment where everything's so politicized and people seem to be on edge all the time about different values and thoughts and how people want to live their lives. It's just being able to take a step back and understand, these people are pursuing what they believe is right. And, they're most likely not the evil people you might think they are. And take the time to be charitable with them and hear their perspective. And I think a lot of times people would get along much better and be a lot nicer to each other if they pursue disagreements about those things in that perspective.
Yeah, it's something like be compassionate.
Yeah. And be
thoughtful.
Yeah, just like I think a lot of times people get into this mindset where it's just like, I'm thinking one way and there's no way of influencing that. And if someone thinks this, they're bad. I think this, so I'm right, where it's so much more nuanced than that. And a lot of these complex issues have complex answers, and it's not just a one sentence answer to fix these problems. They're much more complex, and we can take the time to understand people's views and thoughts about them and have a rational discussion around it and not be so angry with each other, but be more charitable.
Yeah. Sometimes when we connect with each other, even though we have different beliefs, different opinions, but sometimes if we choose to understand each other a little better, we may be more compassionate, right? Because we feel we are connected. We feel the connections. So even though we may not agree, but we can accept.
Yeah, because a lot of times people, they're pursuing what they believe is right, which is what you're doing as well. You just have a different opinion on how to get there, so we're all trying to do good. A lot of times it's just with different ideas of how to get there.
So if the audience can only take away with one opinion or one idea, what would you like it to be?
Well, I would say in regards to the book A Job Worth Doing, wherever you are in your journey or thinking of pursuing a second career, or maybe you're happy in your career doing whatever you do, and you have nieces or nephews or children who are in high school or elementary school, I would say just don't downplay the trades. There's a lot of stigmas around the trades, that they're lesser than other careers. But I'm a testament that you can have a successful, fulfilling career within the trades and you build a life that you're proud of and enjoy. And if someone's interested in the trades, you should encourage that just as much as you would encourage someone going off to pursue a job or career, in a white collar industry or going to university. Just that you can, the trades are a job worth doing, which is as the title says.
It's a callback.
Yeah.
Thanks so much, Steve, for sharing.
Yeah. Thanks, Thomas.